Hey everyone, this is your asynchronous module for February the 18th. We are going to talk a bit about ethical issues from a disability studies perspective, and particularly in relation to bioethics and disability rights. And then we'll talk about next week a little bit, but it's basically going to be diving into this ASH article. So the framing questions that you should be thinking about as you're watching this and reading through the ASH, if you haven't read it yet, is how can we come to understand these ethical issues from a disability studies perspective? So we've talked about, the history of the disability studies movement and when it started uh, happening. It was really only in the 60s and 70s. And then how that plays into these ethical issues that we're diving into. So euthanasia, eugenics, abortion, infanticide. And then what are the underlying assumption beliefs in our culture that create these dilemmas? So, the social model, like what are the things that we have been socialized to believe about folks with disabilities, and why then are these sort of ethical issues intersecting with disability, and whose life is worth saving is a big issue and with a lot of these. What does it mean to be fully human and fully alive? So think back to the activity we did in class about quality of life. Who has the right to make these types of decisions? So that would be, thinking back to the article about genetic testing and who has these rights to make decisions. And then what does it mean to live and die with dignity? So basically, overall, think about who are the stakeholders in this debate? Like, who has a say? Who should be the people we're listening to? So bioethics and disability rights. So these are both two sort of constructions or two, not movements necessarily. Disability rights is definitely a movement. The bioethics is more of a technological advance, right? That came about, and they overlap, and they started about the same time in our country's history or in our world's history. Um, and basically, we're fighting against medical paternalism, which just means that, paternalism is like the ever uh, powerful, the paternal figure is, powerful and making decisions for someone else. In a medical model, certainly gives, rights to someone other than the person with a disability or with a diagnosis at times. Um, so a quote from Ash, they all demonstrate the biology is not destiny and that we must grapple with what control we believe is appropriate to exert over our biological lives. Um, so some examples of biotechnology, gene therapies to eradicate genes that may not be desirable, but who gets to decide that? Prenatal testing. And then here's a Shakespeare quote from Shakespeare that we read earlier in the semester. Recent advances in biotech will enable doctors to identify and eradicate impairment and disease, all of which reinforces the traditional individualistic biological determinist explanation for disablement, threatens eugenic elimination of impairment and the authenticity of disabled lives, and reinforces the hegemony of biomedicine over disability. A brief video. So I will post this presentation separately so that you can watch. I think it's only about 6 minutes. It's actually Tom Shakespeare talking about gene therapy and technological advancements that improve outcomes for folks with disabilities. And then another great video that I'd really want you to watch about the sort of like engineering out Down syndrome in Iceland. The video is about, but it's happening lots of places in the world. What social political structures may have shaped this decision? How does this map onto what we know about decisions here in the US? So another brief video to watch, and then a preview. So next Tuesday, the 23rd, we will meet in person. We will kind of wrap up our ethics and values discussion next week. And you should have read the Robert Stoff and Parrish article and Shapiro. And we'll unpack those a bit in class. The only thing that you have to do and turn in by Tuesday is the being human questions. I think it's for chapters 7 and 8, something like that. On your syllabus, your syllabus on the Blackboard, it does say that the next discussion board is due on Tuesday, but I'm actually postponing that a week. So you will not have to do a discussion board post this week. Have a great weekend.